So my name's Ryan. Oh, okay.
Well, hello, 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 and welcome back to another episode of the Summer Spotlight 2020. I am your host, Gayle Nicholson. Thank you so much for joining us again today. As always, if you're watching on Facebook, please give us a like, give us a couple of hearts. Let us know that you're out there, and if you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to ask them. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. We are growing fast, and I am so happy to have you along for the ride. Awesome. So, today I have the pleasure to introduce you to a gentleman that is quite an interesting character in the yoga arena. His name is Ryan Russ. He is a heart healing meditation leader and yoga instructor with Sunset LA Yoga. So help me welcoming him today. How are you, Ryan? How's life treating you right now?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I started off the day doing some yoga and pranayama breathing. So I'm doing great and I'm really happy to be here. Looking forward to the interview and meeting a bunch of new people.
Fantastic. Well, we are very, very happy to have you. Let me just stop you for a second. You said breathing. What kind of breathing did you say?
Sure. It's called pranayama breathing.
Tell me
And
about it.
yeah, sure. Pranayama breathing is an ancient breathing technique which helps elevate your energy. And right now, it's a very good thing to be doing, especially everything that's happening, because it strengthens and boosts your immune system. It can elevate your mood. It releases stress, depression, and anxiety. It can improve mental focus and clarity and concentration. So it's an excellent thing to do first thing in the morning before you've had any food, or it's suggested not to have any caffeine. And it can just really help get the day started in an uplifting way. I teach these exercises to beginners, and I also teach proper yogic breath, which is just proper breathing. Many people in our society aren't breathing properly and they don't even realize it. So it's something very simple, a step-by-step process I teach, and it's a very healing process, and anybody can learn it.
Interesting. Interesting. You say that we, especially Americans, I imagine, don't breathe properly. I'm going
Right.
to assume that means we're very shallow breathers and we don't get the full force of it. But am I wrong? What do you mean by that?
That's part of it. And on the inhalations, some people are bringing their abdomen in. And as you inhale, you're supposed to be expanding the abdomen, filling it up with air. And on the exhalation, you can slowly bring the abdomen into the body. But the first part you had mentioned with the shallow breath, or not even holding their breath and not even realizing it, is something that's very common, especially when people are in flight or flight mode, or they have trauma or anxiety or fear. It's just, and right now it's just a heightened time for these things. And a real benefit to the breathing exercises along with the yoga practice, especially right now. There was a Harvard medical study released, which I have all the information about how important it is right now for people to be doing yoga first thing in the morning. So this practice can help literally strengthen and boost your immune system. And the medical field is now recognizing it as something people should do to help fight off the virus. Any virus, I mean, not just COVID, but any fatigue, stress, day to day stuff.
That's really good advice. Like we were talking just a little bit before the show, I'm a big fan of um, treating your immune system properly, like daily maintenance with nutrition, exercise, which can be as simple as yoga, breathing techniques, rather than, you know, it's better to keep your body able to fight it off than to have to treat it after it doesn't, right?
Definitely preventative maintenance. And another thing I really wanted to touch upon is a lot of these words we're using can seem big or like yoga. And I want to really emphasize that yoga is for everybody. You don't have to be flexible to do yoga. I teach, people of all body shapes, all levels of yoga. I myself am not very flexible. I snapped my femur bone 20 years ago, and yoga can be for anybody. I work a lot with newer people
Mm-hmm.
who have never been exposed to the practice. They've always been interested, but they felt intimidated going into classes. I work with some guy. He's in his 70s. He's a Vietnam vet. He had never done yoga, and I've been working with him for over a year, and I've watched the practice really change his life.
Mm, that's awesome. What are some of the benefits that you see him getting out of that over
Well,
the
I
course of a
just
year?
Yeah, that's a great question. I just see for people is that it's something. First of all, we use the word self-care a lot. It's something that people can create for themselves that just helps them improve their overall sense of well-being. I mean, I understand that myself personally because I'm teaching the practice. I never thought I would ever be teaching the practice. So I saw firsthand what it did for me. That's part of the reason why I'm so passionate sharing the practice. So some of the benefits can just include that people can create an overall sense of wellness, and increase the flexibility. They can improve their digestive system. So there's a lot of internal benefits for your internal organs. It can lower your blood pressure, and it can help with if you have insomnia. It can help with people who have insomnia. um, it's everything that people could use to very practically to help reduce stress, and it also can help just create more of a balance. So a lot of people right now, their emotions are going really high and low, and or just staying low, and there's different techniques for helping to boost their overall mood and sense of well-being.
That's excellent. Excellent stuff. Now, as far as daily maintenance, it's funny to take a look at the fact that we oil change our car. We put gas in it whenever the needle gets a little too far. And for a lot of people, it's not even empty, but because they don't want that sludge to come up out of the gas tank and get into their air filters, they'll fill it up at a certain point, right? To make sure that nothing bad happens to that car. We should be treating our bodies, the vehicle that our spirits, you know, walk around in, um, with just as much respect, in my opinion, right?
Yeah, it's true. And one of the things I do when I work with people is I give them lessons and things that they can be doing on their own between each session. For example, the gentleman I was telling you about
Mm-hmm.
and other clients of mine, that's what I do is I work with them on a one-on-one basis, and then I don't just leave them. I send them a bunch of information between sessions, so things that they can be definitely practicing on their own. That's very practical. And there's something that they taught us is like 10 minutes of practice per day is better than like no practice. So it's not like you need to be, in your house for hours a day doing yoga. Just a little bit every day can help build up. And then if you have the time, if you have that luxury of the time, it's something you can definitely do. And yes, we do see so many people take excellent care of their cars, their clothes, and yeah, they have a different thing with their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
It's the number one thing I think for stress is where we're feeling it in our bodies, and that so unfortunately that can be a way we're taking it out on.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So tell me a little bit about how you actually got into yoga. I mean,
Yeah,
everybody's got their story of how yoga presented itself to them. So what's yours?
yeah, that's a great question. So I was living in California. I grew up in Chicago, and I was living in California. And in California, it's a very, the lifestyle here is very 4 years of not using drugs and alcohol. I was seeking things, like spiritual activities,
Mm-hmm.
people with like-minded things, and just looking for things to do. And I found a yoga studio by my house, and I started taking classes. I found a teacher I liked, and I just started going regular. I really liked the discipline of the practice, and it tied into a lot of the things I had been learning, like spiritual principles. And then I was in the Bahamas on a trip, And I just read in the book, this was long before the internet was so popular. This was like 13 years ago. I read about a yoga ashram there, and I just wound up visiting, and they were doing what's called a satsang, which is just meditation and kirtan chanting, and it's invoking, it's very like heart healing, heart opening. And I
Mm-hmm.
had a very powerful experience, and I wound up staying there for three weeks longer on the
Wow.
trip just there. And they have a very structured, two yoga classes, two meditation, vegetarian food. You don't, vegetarian food, and just they were teaching a lot of different things, workshops. And I've wound up going back there for years, and then finally I took the yoga teacher training with no intention of being a yoga teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the time I was working in the addiction recovery field, and I was helping people, and I thought to myself, I knew a lot of people in the community and they have these groups. So then they started offering me to do groups for yoga classes at these facilities. And I was going all over doing these yoga classes. I do crystal sound bowl healing. I have these sound bowls in the back
Mm-hmm.
of me. And here, I'll give you guys a little demo. So I do those as well in the group. And I also do a heart healing meditation, and I'll slowly incorporate the breathing exercises.
Mm-hmm.
And then when COVID hit, I started teaching online. I teach online on Zoom, and I work with clients one on one on Zoom.
That's
And
awesome
then
stuff.
in January, I took they have an advanced practice training. So I had done my regular training, and then I did the advanced training, and then I guess there was, I was ready for COVID, in the sense that it happened shortly after, and thankfully I had built up my practice and stuff like that.
Isn't it
So
wonderful how the universe just kind of goes, okay, we need you over here, and and it just unfolds in front of you, and then there's a moment when you find, wow, I am in the perfect spot for me.
yeah, I do feel like I am aligned with what I'm doing now as to definitely what I should be doing. I've worked in several roles in the field I'm in now, and I really like what I'm doing now by far the best. I love sharing the practice with other people, and offering help, and really meeting people where they're at and making them feel comfortable with, you know, embarking on the practice, and sharing it with them and giving them things that are very practical that will help them. I know that from firsthand experience, so I believe in what I'm doing and stuff like that. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, you mentioned one client that you worked with who was a veteran
mhm.
that got some pretty amazing results and shift in his life over the course of
Yeah,
a year or so. Go ahead.
yeah, he has PTSD,
Uh
so
huh.
that has helped him with his PTSD. We had known each other before we started working together,
Mm-hmm.
and then so it was very, I do create an atmosphere where people, like, I'm very open and honest. I also had struggled with depression and anxiety myself, so I'm in different Facebook groups for that and stuff like that. So anybody can come to me with anything. I worked as a coach for 5 years, where I was working with people who were in the height of their addiction, and I started going to detoxes, and I would work with clients one on one when they would leave so they could transition safely. So, confidence is very important, and
Mm-hmm.
I do create an atmosphere where, like, any there's nothing that people can whatever
Yeah.
whatever they're doing, so.
Yep. That's good. What other kinds of people specifically have you worked with that they've gotten some good results? I mean, I assume everyone that works with you gets good results, but what are some specific types of people that have come to you and the benefits that they have gotten?
Sure, yeah. So I have been working with people that have a lot of physical pain, and I've had been working with recently with people that have that are carrying a lot of extra weight. So the people that are having the physical pain, the benefit of working one on one, as opposed to, oh, I'm just taking a random class or whatever, is we can stop and we can adjust accordingly to that. The people that are carrying extra weight, a lot of times they have a lot of strength, so they can do the poses. We just have to adjust the pace in which we're doing. Like, for example, in sun salutations, it's many movements and it can get quite rapid.
Hmm.
And so sometimes we just have to shorten the amount of rounds or slow the pace down for their specific needs. So everybody kind of has a different little niche in which the way they need to be worked with, and that's something you discover. What I typically do is I take a consultation with people, and then I'll talk to them. Now, a lot of the people I wind up working with is through people, somebody's saying like, oh, I know this guy, or I've worked with this guy, or I know him, and then then you develop the relationship that way from how you
Awesome.
start working with people. Yeah.
That's
So
great.
that's kind of it. And then the other thing I was going to say, I do work with people that already have a regular practice, and so a lot of these people that I work with, like the last 6 months during my regular class, I have a student, she comes every day, is because she is working, she has her career, and she wants to use this as something she's giving to herself, but she doesn't want to think. She just wants to be guided through the practice, and she just wants to go through the practice, right?
Hmm.
So she's very experienced. In fact, we did the advanced training together. So, but she likes the idea of, and I too like having, people that are teaching me all the time. So it's something that I find it helps with my mind. I'm allowing people to help me. So
That's that's a very important point. Let's not gloss over that, because that is one thing that I think is so very very important is that we never choose to stop learning and can continually build new neural pathways in the brain, learning new things and experiencing new things. I think that that does an awful lot for us as human beings as far as thriving, right? The will to live, and I've watched it a number of times with older people in my family. Once you stop moving, you start dying.
definitely no, and this is something that I've seen in the practice that it's not, you don't have to be, it doesn't, the movement doesn't have to be so extreme either. It can be a very gentle. I work at a facility in Malibu, and there was a guy that I've been working with him over the last 2 months, and when I started, he couldn't even stand, he couldn't walk down the stairs to where, and a lot of that had to do with substance abuse as well. But now 2 months later, he is like totally going through the class. I mean, it's a very gentle class, but it's incredible. And this is a guy who had never done yoga, and he told me like he's like so appreciative of it. So, and he's probably in his late 60s, if I had to guess.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it's you're right. I mean, it's something that can be offered to people. The main thing I just try to emphasize is that a lot of people, when they hear the word yoga, they think like, oh, I have to be like an acrobat or
Yeah,
like,
a contortionist.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
The
And
goal is to get your ankle behind your neck, right? That's
right,
always.
right. And it's not, it can just be very, there's also like chair yoga, there's gentle yoga, there's, yin yoga, so there's restorative yoga. So there's a lot of ways. There's a new practice that's very popular, like yoga nidra, just keeping people still and in a meditative state. When I end the class, there's a lot of relaxation and a heart healing meditation. So, and the class tends to go from a yoga pose into a relaxation. And during that relaxation, you're experiencing the benefits of that particular yoga pose, along with relaxing the body and restoring energy into the body. See, typically in our day to day lives, we're so busy, and even if we're not busy, we think we should be busy or whatever, however the mind is going. And this really allows you to relax, and to soften and to let go. So I think that's something that's beneficial for everybody.
Hmm. I agree. I definitely agree. Um, a couple of days ago, I went out to a pond near me and sat down on a bench under a little portico and was looking out over the lake. And this little ancient Vietnamese man walked up on the dock. And as I'm sitting there, I'm just looking out over the water. He starts doing some really, it wasn't Tai Chi, he was just doing some swinging, right? And some clapping, you know? And this went on for probably about 10 minutes. And he didn't do any strange, positioning or pulling or anything that would be stressful. He was just moving in metered ways for a purpose and a focus. And it was the most interesting yoga practice that I've ever watched someone do. It was phenomenal, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's any way you can move your body, is
Yeah.
good. And especially right now, for so many people, it's very sediment, because a lot of people are indoors and they're sitting around maybe more than they're used to. So yeah, any way you can find a way to get your body moving right now, especially,
Hmm.
is great.
That's wonderful stuff. Now, you personally, right? I want you to get really specific with me. How did yoga actually change your life?
Yeah, okay, that's a great question. So I have, along with substance abuse, I've struggled with like a lot of depression and stuff like that. So the practice allows me it's created a very practical way for me to uplift my spirit, right? And my spiritual position. And a lot of people are confused about this as well. The reason we do karma yoga, which is like you do selfless service for other people
Mm-hmm.
without any selfish intentions, or you're not attached to the outcome, meaning you help someone, but if they take it, fine. If they wind up angry at you, it's not your fault, or just any selfless act you're doing. And so, and then you can start incorporating these yoga poses. And then once you're doing that, you can prepare the mind for meditation. So for me, your question, how personally it helped create a lot of a self discipline for myself. It helped me with purpose and meaning to my life, and it also helped with, the a lot of the belief systems I grew up with, or a lot of the ideas that
Mm-hmm.
I still have, or that my parents, or belief systems that were just culturally, or the family environment. Yoga really, it shifted my perspective, and it helped complement already this other spiritual path I was on. Um, and the more I started to learn about it, not just the physical part of it, but the practical side of it, it really made sense to me personally. And then when I started sharing the practice, like keep going out there and teaching, and I would see on other people's faces, not just their faces, but you could see their spirit and their mood and everything else. I was like, oh, this is something that really makes sense to me. And I've sat through a lot of, like I was telling you, the set songs where they have guest speakers, and there's so many teachers that I've come across that were very successful in their careers, like engineers, doctors, therapists, accountants, and they became very unhappy. They thought if they had all these things that they were going to be so happy, and like these outside things were going to, their parents or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
society, and then they became very depressed. And then they found the yoga practice, and they found something, very meaningful to them. And that was very similar to my experience. I had found the practice, and I never thought I wanted to teach or anything like that. It was just something I was using to help create overall wellness, and a sense of peace, and a challenge too. And then as I started to share the practice, that's when I realized, oh, this is something I really want to embark upon more. And I see the benefits of it, and all the other life experiences I've had. Like, I work with a client right now that's going through a lot of difficult situations. So we do the practice, and then we have a coaching session, or we're talking afterwards, and I have a lot of experience with helping people that have been in the lowest point of their lives in every way of their life, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so the practice itself is an excellent tool to help shift that, and it's very practical for anybody, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So for me personally, that's kind of how I found it, and it's just something you kind of I just I knew, like, when as I was doing it, I was like, this is something that I definitely want to continue to embark upon, you know.
Yeah.
And you can like during the trainings, especially, you do 30 days in a row, and you go from the regular training, you go from about 5:30 in the morning till 10 at night, and you do 4 hours of yoga practice, the physical practice, the breathing exercises. You're doing an hour of meditation, an hour of chanting, and then you're learning about the yoga path, karma yoga, raja yoga, bhakti yoga, like the different paths. That's a little,
Yeah,
you
I
know, a
had no
little.
idea there were so many different forms of yoga.
Yeah. So that have nothing to do with the actual physical practice, but that's not what we're teaching here in the West. We're teaching yoga poses. I mean, that's more common.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and you really start to grow. I mean, and then when you do the advanced practice, you wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and for an hour, you're doing the advanced breathing exercises, which
Wow.
are extremely purifying and cleansing. And the whole time you're there, you're eating a very sattvic diet, which is just, the word sattvic means pure, like healthy diet. There's no,
There's
and
no
you're
Cheetos. I don't know if I could stand that.
well,
There's no
go in
Cheetos.
you can go out, and I mean, it's just it's a lot of self-discipline, and you're being surrounded by teachers that have been doing this a long time. So they're help guiding you. So it's
Fantastic.
really an amazing thing.
That's awesome stuff. Now, how can people reach out to you to find out more and possibly set up like a one-on-one, where am I at in my practice and what can you do for me session?
So you can find me on Facebook. My name is Ryan Russ, RyanRuss. You can find me on Instagram at Sunset LA Yoga 22. And you can contact me directly. I'll be happy to give out my phone number. Is 323-356-4848. It's 323-356-4848. And you can email me at sunsetlayoga@gmail.com, or personally at ryanhruss@gmail.com.
Beautiful.
So,
Okay.
and you can send me a message on Facebook. I'm becoming a lot more active on social media. COVID kind of pushed me in that direction because I was busier teaching outside.
Hmm.
So now I'm learning in the digital marketing, digital offering world.
That's awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Awesome. Okay, cool. And also want to make sure that everyone knows that if you reach out to Ryan and mention the spotlight, he's going to give you a 20-minute interview with him, consultation, to provide an individualized practice for you. So I highly encourage you, please take one of those methods: phone number, Instagram, Facebook, email, and reach out to him and let him know that you want to work with him. So, Ryan, do you have any final thoughts for us today?
My final thought is, first, I want to thank you for taking the time for doing the interview. And I just want to welcome anybody to the practice who's new. And just, I mean, I think we've made this point several times throughout the interview, but the practice is for everybody, and if you're in crisis, or if you're just curious, or if you feel like you want to try something different, like you've been lifting weights or running a lot, and you want to just try something different, you definitely can try the practice. Like and the last thing I want to say about the practice is, don't expect miracles overnight. It's definitely a process. It takes time. So it's best to be very patient and just be open-minded. A lot of people, think like, oh, I'm just going to go, and it can take time, and it takes time to build up, but it's definitely it's definitely worth it. And you can notice the mood and the benefits of that, you know,
Right
quite
away.
quickly, depending on where you're at. But yeah, that would be my final thoughts. And if you're looking for something to do that's healthy for yourself in every way, physically, spiritually, for your health, during this time to boost and raise your immune system and strengthen it, the practice will complement that
Wow.
incredibly. Yeah.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you again so very much for being here, Ryan, and thank you for what you're doing to help raise the vibration generally and collectively in the planet. We need as many people doing that as we possibly can get these days. So thank you again. You have a great
Yeah.
weekend.
Thank you.
Facebook, have a great long weekend. To everybody in the U.S., happy Labor Day. Enjoy your relaxation. Take care. When you open yourself up to actual energy work, makes that recovery progress so much faster. That recovery is possible. You do not have to live as a victim until your last days. You have unbelievable strength, and I know that because you're still here. Do you want to create something completely unrecognizable with your life? I can show you how.